The dust hung heavy in the afternoon air when Lily Carson walked into Kingston, Nevada, carrying everything she owned in a flour sack slung over her shoulder, her boots worn through at the heels, and her dress faded from months on the trail. She had walked the last 17 miles after the stagecoach driver refused to take her any further without payment. And now her throat burned with thirst as she surveyed the main street of this rough settlement that promised nothing but another chance to survive in a world that had stripped away everything familiar. It was September of 1878, and the silver mines that had brought Kingston to life were already showing signs of decline, though enough prospectors and ranchers still populated the area to keep the saloons busy, and the general store stocked with supplies that Lily could not afford. She stopped outside the mercantile, setting down her flour sack to wipe the sweat from her brow. The sun beat mercilessly on the wooden boardwalk, and she could feel the eyes of passing men assessing her in that way she had grown accustomed to since losing her parents to typhoid fever back in Missouri. At 22 years old, Lily had learned that a woman alone invited both sympathy and suspicion, and she preferred to avoid both whenever possible. "You look like you could use some water, miss," a voice said from behind her. Lily turned to find a tall man watching her, his weathered face shaded by a wide-brimmed hat that had seen better days. He wore the clothes of a working rancher, practical and dusty, and his green eyes held a directness that was neither threatening nor pitying. Something in his bearing suggested authority earned through hard work rather than bluster. "I would be grateful for that," Lily said, her voice hoarse. The man gestured toward a water trough nearby, but before Lily could take a step, he stopped her. "Not that one. Come on, the restaurant across the street will give you something clean to drink." He picked up her flour sack before she could protest, testing its weight with surprise. "This everything you got?" "Yes." Lily saw no point in pretending otherwise. "I am Harrison Grant," he said as they crossed the dusty street. "I run a cattle ranch about 8 miles north of here. Been coming into town for supplies." "Lily Carson," she replied, studying him more carefully now. He appeared to be in his late 20s, his hands scarred from rope and leather, his movements economical and purposeful. There was something solid about him that reminded her of the oak trees back home, and she felt an unexpected flutter of hope in her chest before she could suppress it. The restaurant was modest but clean, and Harrison ordered her a full meal without asking if she could pay. Lily wanted to refuse out of pride, but hunger won over dignity. She drank 2 glasses of water before the food arrived, and Harrison watched her with a thoughtfulness that made her self-conscious. "You are not from around here," he observed, stating the obvious in a way that invited conversation rather than demanding explanation. "Missouri, originally," Lily said between bites of bread. "I have been traveling for 3 months, working where I could find it. My parents died last spring and there was nothing left for me there. You got family waiting for you here in Kingston?" "No. I heard there might be work in Nevada, so I came west." She did not mention the series of disappointments in other towns, the jobs that evaporated when she arrived, the boarding houses that would not take a woman without references. Harrison was quiet for a moment, watching her eat with an intensity that should have made her uncomfortable but somehow did not. "Can you cook?" he asked finally. "Yes, and clean and mend and tend a garden. I can handle chickens and milk cows if needed." Lily met his gaze directly, refusing to apologize for her circumstances. "My ranch has been running short-handed since my cook left to get married last month. I have been burning more meals than I have been eating, and the 2 ranch hands who work for me are threatening to quit if they have to eat my attempts at biscuits one more time." Harrison leaned back in his chair. "The pay is not much, but room and board are included, and the work is steady. Lily felt her heart begin to race. "You are offering me a position, if you want it. The ranch house has a separate room off the kitchen where the previous cook stayed. It is not fancy, but it is clean and private." Harrison's expression remained neutral, businesslike. "I will not lie to you, Miss Carson. The work is hard. I need someone up before dawn to get breakfast ready for the hands, and the days are long. But I pay fair, and I run a decent operation. Why would you offer this to someone you just met?" Lily asked, suspicion rising despite her desperate need. Harrison smiled slightly, the first real warmth she had seen from him. "Because you look like you need the work, and I need the help. Sometimes things work out simple like that. Besides, Martha over at the boarding house has been trying to send her niece out to cook for me, and that girl cannot tell a skillet from a bucket. You strike me as someone who knows what she is doing." Lily made her decision in the space of a heartbeat. "When do I start?" "Soon as you finish eating, we can head out to the ranch. I've got the wagon loaded with supplies already." Harrison stood and placed some coins on the table. "But I want to be clear about expectations. I run a respectable operation. The bunkhouse where my hands sleep is separate from the main house, and I expect everyone to conduct themselves accordingly. You will have your privacy, and your safety is guaranteed on my property." "I understand," Lily said, rising from the table. She felt lighter than she had in months, as if the weight of uncertainty had been lifted from her shoulders. "Thank you, Mr. Grant. Harrison is fine. We do not stand on formality much at the ranch." The wagon ride north took them through landscape that seemed inhospitable at first glance, all sagebrush and scattered juniper trees. But Lily began to notice the subtle beauty in the way the mountains rose in the distance, and the sky stretched endless and blue above them. Harrison drove with practiced ease, pointing out landmarks and explaining the layout of his property as they traveled. "I have got about 500 head of cattle right now, running on about 3,000 acres. It is not the biggest operation, but it is mine free and clear. Bought it 4 years ago after working as a hand for other outfits since I was 16. He spoke with quiet pride, and Lily found herself listening carefully to the cadence of his voice. "The 2 hands I mentioned are Pete Donovan and Charlie Wu. Pete has been with me since the beginning, and Charlie joined up last year. They are good men, hard workers. You will not have any trouble from them." "How did you end up in Nevada?" Lily asked, curious about this man who had appeared like Providence in her moment of need. "Came out from Ohio with my father when I was 15. He had dreams of striking it rich in the silver mines, but he died in a cave-in before that could happen. I decided ranching suited me better than digging in the dark." Harrison glanced at her briefly before returning his attention to the road. "What about you? What made you leave Missouri besides your parents' passing?" Lily hesitated, then decided honesty served better than evasion. "There was a man there who wanted to marry me. He owned the property next to my family's farm, and after my parents died, he made it clear that marriage was the only way I would keep a roof over my head. He was not a kind man, and I could not see myself spending a lifetime with him. So I sold what little I could and left." "That took courage," Harrison said quietly, "or foolishness. I'm not sure which yet. Sometimes they are the same thing." Harrison guided the wagon along a worn track that led through a narrow canyon. "We are almost there now. You will see the ranch buildings once we clear these rocks." When they emerged from the canyon, Lily caught her breath at the sight before her. The ranch house sat in a small valley where a creek provided precious water year-round. It was not large, but it was solidly built from local timber and stone, with a covered porch that wrapped around 2 sides. A barn stood nearby, along with a bunkhouse, several corrals, and various outbuildings that spoke of a working ranch in good order. "It is beautiful," Lily said, meaning it. "It is home," Harrison replied, and she heard the depth of feeling in those simple words. Two men emerged from the barn as the wagon approached, and Harrison made introductions once they had pulled to a stop. Pete Donovan was a grizzled man in his 50s with a salt and pepper beard, and eyes that crinkled with good humor. Charlie Wu was younger, perhaps 30, with the careful politeness of someone who had learned to navigate a world that did not always welcome Chinese immigrants kindly. "Miss Carson is going to be our new cook," Harrison announced, "which means you two might actually get edible food again." "Thank the Lord," Pete said dramatically. "I was beginning to think my stomach had forgotten what proper biscuits taste like." Charlie nodded his greeting to Lily. "Welcome to the ranch, Miss Carson. We are very glad to have you here." Lily felt herself relaxing at their genuine friendliness. "I will do my best to meet your expectations." Harrison showed her to her room while Pete and Charlie began unloading the wagon. The space was small but clean, with a narrow bed, a dresser, a washstand, and a window that looked out toward the mountains. Someone had left fresh linens folded on the bed, and there was a rag rug on the floor that added a touch of warmth. "The previous cook left some things you might find useful in the kitchen," Harrison said from the doorway. "Pots and pans and such. If you need anything else, just let me know and I will get it next time I go into town." "This is more than adequate," Lily said, setting her flour sack on the bed. "When would you like me to start cooking?" "Tomorrow morning is soon enough." "You have been traveling hard, so take the rest of today to settle in and get your bearings. I will show you around the kitchen and the root cellar so you know what supplies we have on hand." Harrison paused, then added, "I am glad you agreed to come, Miss Carson. I think this will work out well." After he left, Lily sank onto the bed and allowed herself a moment of pure relief. For the first time since her parents had died, she had a place to sleep that was hers, a job that would keep her fed, and the promise of stability. She refused to think beyond that for now, refused to acknowledge the way her pulse had quickened when Harrison smiled at her, or the warmth she had felt at his words. There would be time enough to guard her heart later. The kitchen proved to be well equipped, with a large cast iron stove, sturdy work tables, and shelves lined with basic staples. Harrison walked her through the root cellar, which held potatoes, onions, carrots, and other vegetables harvested from a garden that Pete tended with surprising dedication. There were also preserved goods in mason jars, smoked meats hanging in the cool darkness, and sacks of flour and cornmeal that would last through the winter. "We slaughter our own beef, and Pete is a fair hand at smoking and curing meat," Harrison explained. "Charlie keeps chickens, so we have eggs most days. There is a milk cow too, but she is getting old and does not produce like she used to." "I can make this work," Lily said, her mind already planning meals. "What time do you usually eat breakfast? Sunrise or just before?" "The hands and I are usually up well before that, tending to the animals and getting ready for the day's work." Harrison leaned against the doorframe, watching her examine the supplies. "Do not feel like you have to make anything fancy. We are simple men with simple tastes." "Simple does not have to mean bad," Lily said. "I will have something good ready for you tomorrow." That evening, Harrison insisted she join them for the meal he prepared, which consisted of overcooked beans and undercooked cornbread. Pete and Charlie ate without complaint, clearly accustomed to making do, but Lily could see why they had been eager for a real cook. She made mental notes about improving their nutrition and variety. "So, Miss Carson, what brings you all the way to Nevada?" Pete asked, his tone conversational but curious. Lily gave him the abbreviated version of her story, and both men listened with sympathy that did not feel patronizing. Charlie shared that he had come from San Francisco, where he had worked on the railroad, until an injury forced him to seek different employment. Pete had been a cowboy his entire adult life, drifting from ranch to ranch, until Harrison offered him steady work and fair treatment. "This is a good place," Pete said simply. "The boss treats us right and the work is honest." "I am beginning to see that," Lily replied, glancing at Harrison, who seemed uncomfortable with the praise. "Everyone here earns their keep," Harrison said gruffly. "That is all there is to it." After dinner, Lily excused herself to her room, claiming exhaustion from travel. In truth, she needed distance from Harrison's presence, which affected her more than she wanted to admit. She lay in bed listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch settling into night, the lowing of cattle in the distance, the rustle of wind through the sagebrush, and felt something close to contentment. She woke well before dawn, dressed quickly, and made her way to the kitchen. The house was silent, but she could see lamplight in the barn where the men were already at work. Lily stoked the fire in the stove, grateful for the warmth as the desert night had been surprisingly cold. She set to work making biscuits from scratch, frying bacon and eggs, and brewing strong coffee. By the time the sky began to lighten in the east, she had breakfast laid out on the table in the dining area adjacent to the kitchen. Harrison came in first, stopping short when he saw the spread before him. "You did not have to go to all this trouble," he said, but his eyes lit with appreciation. "It is not trouble. It is my job," Lily replied, pouring him coffee. Pete and Charlie arrived moments later, and their reactions were even more enthusiastic. "Miss Carson, if this tastes half as good as it smells, I might propose marriage on the spot," Pete declared, making everyone laugh. "Save your proposals until after you have tried the food," Lily said, but she felt pleased by their obvious delight. The meal passed with easy conversation and genuine appreciation for cooking that was both competent and generous. Harrison ate steadily, his gaze returning to Lily frequently enough that she felt heat rise in her cheeks. When they had finished, all three men thanked her sincerely before heading out to begin their work. The days settled into a rhythm that Lily found deeply satisfying. She rose before dawn to prepare breakfast, spent her mornings cleaning and preparing ingredients for the midday meal, cooked lunch for the men when they came in from the range, and used her afternoons for baking, preserving, and preparing dinner. The work was hard, but it was purposeful, and she took pride in seeing the men's appreciation for her efforts. Harrison often lingered after meals, finding small reasons to remain in the kitchen while Lily cleaned up. He would discuss plans for the ranch, ask her opinion on various matters, or simply sit at the table drinking coffee and watching her work. Lily found herself looking forward to these moments, even as she tried to maintain proper boundaries. "You have made a real difference here," Harrison said one evening about 2 weeks after her arrival. "The men are happier, and I am not dreading mealtime anymore." "I am glad I can contribute," Lily replied, wiping down the counter. "You have given me more than just a job, Harrison. You have given me a chance to build something stable." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Can I ask you something personal?" Lily felt her heartbeat quicken. "You can ask." "That man back in Missouri, the one who wanted to marry you, do you ever regret leaving?" "Not for a single moment," Lily said firmly. "I would rather face uncertainty on my own terms than security that comes with giving up who I am." Harrison nodded slowly. "I admire that. A lot of people would have taken the easier path." "What about you?" Lily asked, emboldened by his openness. "Has there been anyone you wanted to marry?" "There was a woman once, back in Ohio before I came west. She married someone else while my father and I were traveling out here. I got a letter from my cousin telling me about the wedding." Harrison's expression was thoughtful rather than pained. "I was hurt at the time, but looking back, I think we wanted different things. She needed someone who would stay put, and I needed room to breathe. The ranch gives you that, Lily observed. It does. I built something here that is mine, made by my own choices and hard work. That matters more to me than almost anything. Almost anything? Lily asked, surprised by her own boldness. Harrison met her eyes directly. Some things matter more than independence, but finding those things is rare. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility, until Charlie's voice called from outside, breaking the spell. Harrison rose from the table, his movements reluctant. "I should go check on the horses," he said. "Thank you for another fine meal, Lily." It was the first time he had used her given name without the formal Miss Carson, and the intimacy of it sent warmth through her chest. She watched him go, allowing herself to acknowledge what she had been trying to deny. She was falling for Harrison Grant, and the feeling terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. The weeks passed, and autumn settled over the Nevada landscape with cooler temperatures and occasional rain that turned the desert briefly green. Lily's position at the ranch became more than just employment. She began to feel like she belonged there. Pete taught her to ride one of the gentler horses, and she started accompanying him on trips to check the garden and gather wild herbs. Charlie showed her how to mend leather tack and shared stories of his childhood in China that made her see the world through new eyes. But it was Harrison who occupied her thoughts most frequently. He was unfailingly respectful, never overstepping boundaries, yet she felt drawn to him in ways that went beyond gratitude for the job he had given her. She noticed the way his face softened when he smiled, the strength in his hands as he worked, the kindness he showed to animals and people alike. He was a good man in a world where such men were not as common as they should be. One October afternoon, Lily was in the kitchen preparing pies when Harrison came in unexpectedly early. His expression was troubled, and he carried himself with unusual tension. "Is everything all right?" Lily asked, setting down her rolling pin. "Pete found signs of rustlers on the North Range this morning," Harrison said, removing his hat and running a hand through his hair. "We are missing about 20 head of cattle, maybe more. This is the third incident in as many weeks. What are you going to do?" "I am riding into Kingston tomorrow to talk to the sheriff, for what good it will do. Then we will have to increase our patrols and keep better watch on the herd." Harrison sank into a chair, frustration evident in every line of his body. "I cannot afford to lose much more livestock, Lily. The profit margins are tight enough as it is." Lily wiped her hands on her apron and poured him coffee without asking. She set the cup before him and took the chair opposite. "You will figure it out. You are good at what you do, and you have loyal men working for you." "Loyal men cannot be everywhere at once," Harrison said, but he wrapped his hands around the coffee cup gratefully. "I am sorry to burden you with this. You have your own work to worry about." "Your troubles affect all of us here," Lily said. "We are a household, whether we planned it that way or not." Harrison looked at her then, really looked at her, and Lily felt the air between them shift. "When you first arrived in Kingston, carrying everything you owned in a flour sack, I told myself I was just helping someone who needed work. I told myself it was purely practical. And now," Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper, "now I cannot imagine this ranch without you in it," Harrison said. "I wake up looking forward to seeing you at breakfast. I find excuses to come back to the house during the day just to hear your voice. I have been trying to maintain proper distance, to be a respectful employer, but the truth is, Lily, I have feelings for you that go well beyond that." Lily felt tears prick her eyes, not from sadness but from the overwhelming relief of hearing him voice what she had been feeling. "I was afraid I was alone in feeling this way," she admitted. "I tried to tell myself it was just gratitude, that I was confusing appreciation for something deeper. But it is more than that, Harrison. You have given me more than just a job. You have made me feel like I have found home. Harrison reached across the table, and Lily placed her hand in his. His grip was warm and strong, and the simple contact sent electricity through her entire body. I do not want to rush you into anything, Harrison said. I know you have been through a lot and you deserve time to be sure of what you want, but I needed you to know how I feel. I am sure, Lily said firmly. I have never been more sure of anything. Whatever this is between us, I want to see where it leads. Harrison stood, drawing her up with him, and for a moment they simply stood there, hands clasped, looking at each other with new understanding. Then he raised her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. I will court you properly, he said. No matter what happens with the rustlers or the ranch, I want to do this right. I would like that, Lily replied, her heart soaring. They heard Pete and Charlie approaching the house and reluctantly stepped apart, but the looks they exchanged spoke volumes. Everything had changed, and there was no going back. Harrison rode into Kingston the next morning, and Lily spent the day in a state of nervous energy, cooking and cleaning with unusual fervor. Pete noticed her distraction and gave her a knowing smile. The boss is smitten with you, he said while she served lunch. Anyone with eyes can see it. Is it that obvious? Lily asked, embarrassed. Only to anyone who has been watching the way he looks at you these past weeks, Pete replied kindly. For what it is worth, I think you two are well matched. Harrison is a good man who deserves someone who sees him for who he is, not just what he owns. I do see him, Lily said quietly. He is the best man I have ever known. Charlie, overhearing the conversation, added his own thoughts. In my culture, we believe that fate brings people together at the right time. You arrived when the ranch needed you, and perhaps when Harrison needed you most. That is not coincidence. Lily treasured their words and felt grateful for their acceptance of her growing relationship with Harrison. She had feared that the dynamics of the ranch might become complicated, but both men seemed genuinely pleased by the development. Harrison returned late that afternoon, his expression grim. The sheriff says his hands are tied. There have been rustling incidents at 3 other ranches in the area, and he does not have the manpower to patrol all the ranges. He suggested we form a cattlemen's association for mutual protection. Will that help? Lily asked. It might, if we can get enough ranchers to cooperate. I am going to ride out to the neighboring properties tomorrow and talk to the other owners. Harrison looked exhausted, and Lily's heart ached for him. Let me fix you some dinner, she said. You look like you have not eaten all day. While Lily prepared a plate of food, Harrison sat at the kitchen table and told her about the other problems facing small ranchers in the area. The large cattle operations were buying up smaller spreads, water rights were becoming increasingly contentious, and the railroad's pricing structure made it hard for independent operators to turn a profit. I am not ready to give up, Harrison said fiercely. I've put too much of myself into this place to let it go without a fight. No one expects you to give up, Lily said, setting food before him. And you are not fighting alone. You have people who believe in you. Harrison caught her hand as she turned away. Having you here makes all the difference, Lily. I want you to know that. Over the following weeks, Harrison worked tirelessly to organize the Cattlemen's Association while also managing the daily operations of his ranch. Lily watched him drive himself to exhaustion and did what she could to support him, ensuring he ate properly and occasionally forcing him to rest when he would have worked through the night. Their courtship progressed slowly but steadily, built on conversations that stretched late into the evening and small gestures of affection that grew more comfortable over time. Harrison brought Lily wildflowers he found on the range, and she baked his favorite apple pie without him having to ask. They took walks along the creek after dinner, talking about their pasts, their dreams, and the future they were beginning to imagine together. One evening in early November, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and purple, Harrison took Lily's hand and said, "I need to ask you something important." Lily felt her breath catch. "I am listening." "These past months with you have been the happiest of my life," Harrison began. "You have brought light into this place and into my heart. I know we have not been courting for very long by traditional standards, but I am certain of what I feel. Lily Carson, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks as she nodded. "Yes," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Harrison, I will marry you." He pulled her into his arms, and they held each other as the last light faded from the sky. When he finally kissed her, it was with a tenderness that made her feel cherished and safe. She kissed him back, pouring all her love and hope into that moment. "I do not have a ring yet," Harrison said when they finally pulled apart. "I will get you a proper one when we go into Kingston next week." "I do not need a ring to know this is real," Lily said, touching his face gently. "I just need you." They decided to marry before Christmas, wanting to start their new year as husband and wife. The news delighted Pete and Charlie, who immediately began planning ways to help with the celebration. Pete offered to build new furniture for the bedroom that Lily and Harrison would share, while Charlie volunteered to prepare a special meal for the wedding feast. The rustling problem remained a concern, but the Cattlemen's Association was beginning to show results. Several ranchers banded together to patrol the ranges in rotation, and the increased vigilance led to the capture of 3 men who had been stealing cattle and selling them across the state line. Harrison's leadership in organizing the effort earned him respect among the other ranchers, and his ranch's prospects began to improve. Lily threw herself into preparations for the wedding, making her own dress from fabric Harrison bought her on a trip to Kingston. She had never been particularly skilled at sewing, but she was determined to create something beautiful for their special day. Pete's wife, whom Lily had not known existed until the woman showed up unexpectedly to help, turned out to be a talented seamstress who helped transform Lily's vision into reality. "Pete talks about you all the time," Martha Donovan said as she helped Lily with the dress fittings. "He says you are the best thing that ever happened to Harrison and to the ranch." "Harrison is the best thing that ever happened to me," Lily replied honestly. "I came to Nevada with nothing but what I could carry in a flour sack, and he gave me not just a job but a home and a family." "That is what love does," Martha said wisely. "It takes what we have and multiplies it until we cannot imagine life any other way." The wedding took place on a clear December morning with temperatures cold enough that Lily could see her breath in the air. The local minister from Kingston performed the ceremony in the ranch house's main room, which had been decorated with evergreen branches and wildflowers that Charlie had somehow coaxed into blooming in pots. Pete stood as Harrison's witness, and Martha served the same role for Lily. Harrison wore his best suit, which he had purchased specifically for the occasion, and Lily wore her handmade dress with a sense of pride. When they exchanged vows, promising to love and cherish each other through whatever challenges life brought, Lily felt the absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. "I love you," Harrison whispered as they sealed their marriage with a kiss. "From the moment you walked into Kingston carrying that flour sack, my life changed for the better." "This ranch had room for more," Lily whispered back, remembering his words from that first day. "And you made room for me in your heart." The celebration that followed was simple but joyful, with food and laughter and genuine happiness. The few neighboring ranchers who had become Harrison's allies in the Cattlemen's Association attended, along with their families, and Lily felt embraced by a community she had not known existed. As the sun set on their wedding day, Harrison led Lily to the bedroom that was now theirs, which Pete had indeed furnished with a beautiful handmade bed frame and matching dresser. Someone had placed fresh flowers on the windowsill, and the space glowed with lamplight and promise. "Are you happy?" Harrison asked, pulling Lily close. "More than I ever dreamed possible," she replied, resting her head against his chest and listening to the steady beat of his heart. That night, they came together as husband and wife with a tenderness and passion that felt like both discovery and homecoming. Harrison was gentle and attentive, making sure Lily felt safe and cherished, and she responded with a generosity that came from deep love. They whispered words of affection in the darkness, learning each other's bodies and hearts with equal care. Life as a married couple brought new routines and deeper intimacy. Lily continued to cook for the household, but now she also shared Harrison's burdens and triumphs in ways that went beyond employer and employee. They made decisions together about the ranch, and Harrison valued her opinions on matters both practical and philosophical. The winter was mild by Nevada standards, with only occasional snow that melted quickly under the desert sun. Harrison and his men worked to build up the herd, purchasing additional cattle with the money saved from preventing further rustling losses. The ranch began to thrive in ways it had not before, and Harrison credited much of the success to the stability that Lily's presence had brought. In early spring, Lily realized she was pregnant. She had suspected for a few weeks but wanted to be certain before telling Harrison. When she finally shared the news over dinner one evening, his face transformed with joy. "A baby," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "We are going to have a baby." "Yes, sometime in October, I think," Lily said, reaching for his hand. Harrison came around the table and swept her into his arms, spinning her gently before setting her down and kissing her thoroughly. "This is the best news I could have imagined," he said against her hair. "You have already given me so much, and now this." Pete and Charlie were equally thrilled when they heard the news, and both men became even more protective of Lily than they had been before. Charlie built her a rocking chair for the nursery that Harrison was already planning, and Pete's wife, Martha, began knitting baby clothes with enthusiasm. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, though Lily dealt with morning sickness during the first few months that made cooking breakfast an ordeal. Harrison insisted she rest more and hired a temporary helper from town to assist with some of the heavier kitchen work, despite Lily's protests that she could manage. "I am not taking any chances with you or our child," Harrison said firmly. "Let me take care of you the way you have taken care of all of us." Lily learned to accept his help, recognizing it as an expression of love rather than a judgment of her capabilities. She spent her afternoons preparing the nursery, washing tiny clothes, and imagining the child they would soon hold. In late October, after a labor that lasted most of a day and into the night, Lily gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Harrison was beside himself with joy, holding his son with tears streaming down his face. "He is perfect," Harrison said in wonder. "Lily, he is absolutely perfect." They named him Henry Thomas Grant, and he had his father's green eyes and his mother's dark hair. Lily had never known she could love so deeply or completely, and watching Harrison with their son melted her heart daily. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. By the time Henry was 2 years old, Harrison had expanded the operation significantly and was recognized as one of the most successful independent ranchers in the area. He never forgot the struggle of those early years or the way Lily had appeared when he needed her most. "Do you ever think about that day you walked into Kingston?" Harrison asked one evening as they sat on the porch watching Henry play with a wooden horse Charlie had carved for him. "All the time," Lily said, leaning against her husband's shoulder. "I was so scared and uncertain, but I kept walking because I did not know what else to do." "I am grateful you kept walking until you found your way here," Harrison said, kissing the top of her head. "This ranch had room for more, and you filled it with more love than I knew existed." 2 years later, Lily gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Hope Catherine Grant. She had Harrison's smile and Lily's determination, and she completed their family in ways they had not known they needed. The years passed with the steady rhythm of ranch life, marked by seasonal changes and the milestones of their growing children. Henry grew into a responsible boy who loved working alongside his father, learning about cattle and horses and the land that was his heritage. Hope was bright and curious, following her mother everywhere, and asking endless questions about cooking, gardening, and the world beyond their ranch. Pete eventually retired from active ranch work, but remained on the property in a small house Harrison built for him and Martha. Charlie married a widow from Kingston, and they had 2 children of their own while Charlie continued to work at the ranch. The property became more than just a business. It was a community built on mutual respect and genuine affection. When Lily was 35, she sometimes reflected on the woman she had been at 22, walking into Kingston with everything she owned in a flour sack. That woman had been strong but scared, capable but uncertain of her place in the world. She had risked everything on the hope that somewhere out west she would find a new beginning. What she found was so much more than she had dared to dream. She found a partner who valued her strength, a home that nurtured her spirit, work that gave her purpose, and a family that filled her heart to overflowing. The ranch that had room for more had expanded to hold not just her belongings but her entire life. Harrison, now 41, still worked the ranch with the same dedication he had shown when Lily first met him, though he increasingly involved Henry in the operations, teaching their son the lessons he had learned through hard experience. He looked at Lily sometimes with an expression of such complete love that it took her breath away, even after 13 years of marriage. "I never imagined this," he told her one night as they prepared for bed. "When I bought this ranch, I thought success meant building something that would last, proving I could make it on my own. I did not understand that the real success would be building a life with someone I love, raising children who will carry on after us, creating something that matters beyond just surviving." "You gave me the chance to be part of that," Lily said, embracing him. "You looked at a woman with nothing and saw someone worth investing in." "I saw someone remarkable," Harrison corrected. "I just had the good sense to recognize it." Their third child arrived when Lily was 36, another boy they named Samuel James Grant. His arrival was a surprise but a welcome one, and he brought renewed joy to the household. Henry, now 11, took his role as big brother seriously, while 8-year-old Hope delighted in having a baby to help care for. The ranch continued to thrive. Harrison had become a respected voice in Nevada's ranching community, frequently called upon to mediate disputes or offer advice to younger ranchers just starting out. He never forgot the struggles of those early years and was generous with both his knowledge and his resources, earning a reputation for fairness and integrity. Lily had grown into her role as the heart of the ranch household. She still cooked, though now with Hope's enthusiastic assistance, and she had developed a garden that was the envy of the county. She also began teaching other ranch wives techniques for preserving food and managing households in the harsh Nevada climate, becoming a valued member of the community in her own right. One autumn evening, When the air had turned cool and the cottonwoods along the creek blazed gold, the entire family gathered on the porch for dinner. It had become a tradition when weather permitted, eating together outside while watching the sun set over the mountains. Henry was talking about a foal he was training, gesturing enthusiastically with his hands in a way that reminded Lily so much of Harrison. Hope was helping her younger brother, Samuel, eat, displaying a maternal patience that made Lily proud. Harrison sat at the head of the table, surveying his family with quiet contentment. "Tell us again about how you and Mama met," Hope asked, as she often did. The story never seemed to grow old for her. Harrison looked at Lily, his eyes crinkling with the smile she loved. "Your mother arrived in Kingston carrying everything she owned in a flour sack," he began. "She had walked 17 miles, and she was dusty and tired and probably wondering if she had made a terrible mistake coming to Nevada. But you helped her," Hope prompted. "I told her this ranch had room for more," Harrison continued. "What I did not tell her, because I did not know it yet myself, was that my heart had room for more too. Room for the most amazing woman I had ever met, and eventually room for 3 incredible children." "That is because love expands," Lily added, meeting her husband's gaze. "It does not divide into smaller pieces. It just grows to hold everything that matters." Samuel, only 3 years old, did not fully understand the conversation, but he beamed at his parents anyway. Henry nodded thoughtfully, already at an age where he was beginning to understand the deeper meanings behind family stories. Hope sighed happily, satisfied with the romantic tale. As darkness fell and the stars emerged in the vast Nevada sky, they moved inside to the warmth of the house. Harrison built up the fire while Lily settled the children for the night. These simple rituals of family life had become precious to her, each moment a reminder of how far she had come and how much she had gained. Later, as she and Harrison prepared for bed, he pulled her close and said, "Do you remember what you told me on our wedding day, about the ranch having room for more and me making room for you in my heart?" "I remember everything about that day," Lily replied. "My heart keeps expanding," Harrison said softly. "Every day with you, every moment with our children, every challenge we face together just makes me love you more. I thought I understood love when we married, but what I feel now is so much deeper." "I feel the same way," Lily whispered. "Sometimes I think about that frightened woman walking into Kingston, and I want to tell her that everything is going to be all right, better than all right. I want to tell her that she is about to find everything she has been searching for." They held each other in the darkness, 2 people who had found each other against the odds and built a life that honored both their individual strengths and their shared dreams. Outside, the ranch settled into nighttime quiet, cattle lowing softly in the distance, horses moving in their stalls, the creek murmuring its eternal song. The years continued to unfold with their mixture of joy and challenge. There were difficult seasons when drought threatened the herd, winters when snow came heavy and early, summers when the heat seemed endless. There were illnesses that scared them and accidents that tested their strength. But through it all, Lily and Harrison faced everything together, their love deepening with each shared experience. Henry grew into a young man who combined his father's work ethic with his mother's compassion. At 18, he was already running much of the ranch's day-to-day operations, allowing Harrison to focus on the broader business aspects. Hope, at 15, had developed into a skilled horsewoman and helped her mother with the garden and household management. Samuel, now 8, showed signs of having a head for numbers that would serve the ranch well in the future. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Harrison surprised Lily with a trip to San Francisco, their first real vacation since marrying. They left the ranch in Henry's capable hands and spent 2 weeks exploring the city, marveling at how different it was from the wide open spaces they called home. "You ever wish you had settled somewhere like this?" Harrison asked as they walked along the waterfront. "Somewhere with more culture and convenience." "Never," Lily said firmly. "The ranch is where I belong. It is where we built our life together. Cities are interesting to visit, but they are not home." "I hoped you would say that," Harrison replied, "because I could never imagine living anywhere else either. Though I am glad we made this trip. It is good to be reminded of how lucky we are." When they returned to Nevada, the ranch looked more beautiful than ever to Lily's eyes. Their children rushed to greet them, full of stories about everything that had happened during their absence. The house smelled like hope had been baking, and Samuel had drawn welcome home signs that he proudly displayed. "It is good to be back," Lily said, embracing each of her children in turn. "We missed you so much." That night, lying in their own bed after 2 weeks away, Harrison said, "Thank you for saying yes all those years ago. Thank you for taking a chance on a struggling rancher who had more dreams than resources. Thank you for seeing past a desperate woman with a flour sack and recognizing someone worth taking a chance on," Lily replied. "You gave me more than a job that day, Harrison. You gave me a future." "We gave each other a future," Harrison corrected. "Everything good in my life stems from the moment you walked into Kingston. You are my partner in every sense of the word." The ranch continued to grow, eventually expanding to over 5,000 acres with a herd of more than 1,000 cattle. Harrison brought Henry into full partnership, recognizing that the young man had earned the right to share in both the work and the profits. Together, father and son made plans for the ranch's future, ensuring it would continue to thrive for generations. Hope married at 19 to a neighboring rancher's son, a young man named Robert who treated her with the respect and love she deserved. The wedding was a grand affair by ranch standards, with nearly 100 guests gathering to celebrate. Watching her daughter exchange vows, Lily was transported back to her own wedding day and the certainty she had felt that she was making the right choice. "Another generation starting their journey," Harrison murmured in her ear as they watched Hope and Robert dance. "I hope they are as happy as we have been," Lily replied. "If they are half as happy, they will be doing well," Harrison said, pulling her into his arms for a dance. Samuel showed an interest in studying agriculture at the state college, and Harrison and Lily encouraged him, recognizing that education would only strengthen the ranch's future prospects. It was hard to see their youngest child leave for school, but they were proud of his ambition and determination. As Lily entered her 50s, she began to slow down slightly, though she remained active in managing the household and garden. Her hair had gone silver at the temples, and there were lines around her eyes from years of squinting into the Nevada sun. But Harrison still looked at her like she was the most beautiful woman in the world. "You are staring," Lily said one evening, catching him watching her as she worked on mending clothes. "I am admiring," Harrison corrected. "There is a difference. After all these years, you still have not gotten tired of looking at me," Lily teased. "After all these years, I fall more in love with you every day," Harrison replied seriously. "You are everything to me, Lily. You always have been." Henry and his wife gave them their first grandchild when Lily was 52, a little girl they named Lily Grace Grant in honor of her grandmother. Holding her namesake for the first time, Lily felt the circle of life complete itself in the most beautiful way. "She looks like you," Harrison said, peering over Lily's shoulder at the sleeping infant. "She looks like hope," Lily replied, "like new beginnings and endless possibilities." The ranch that had once been Harrison's solitary dream had become a family legacy, worked by multiple generations and sustained by love as much as by hard work. Pete had passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 85, and Martha had followed him a year later. Charlie still worked part-time on the ranch, though mostly he supervised rather than doing heavy labor. His children had grown up alongside Lily and Harrison's, creating bonds that went beyond employment. On a late summer evening when Lily was 55, she and Harrison took a walk along the creek, following a path they had walked countless times over the decades. The ranch was quiet in the golden hour before sunset, peaceful and prosperous. "Do you remember the first time we walked this path together?" Harrison asked, taking her hand. "You were courting me properly," Lily said with a smile, "being very respectful and gentlemanly while I was secretly hoping you would kiss me." "I wanted to kiss you so badly that night," Harrison admitted, "but I was terrified of scaring you off." "You could never have scared me off," Lily said. "I was already completely in love with you. I just had not admitted it to myself yet." They sat on a bench that Harrison had built years ago, positioned to offer the best view of the sunset over the mountains. The sky blazed with color, and the air smelled of sagebrush and creek water and home. "If you could go back and talk to that woman who walked into Kingston carrying a flour sack," Harrison said, "what would you tell her?" Lily thought about it carefully. "I would tell her to trust the journey. I would tell her that sometimes the hardest paths lead to the most beautiful destinations. I would tell her that she is stronger than she knows, and that love is waiting for her just around the corner." "I would tell the man I was back then something similar," Harrison said. "I would tell him that the woman who is about to walk into his life will change everything for the better. I would tell him to trust his instincts and not be afraid to take a chance on something that feels right." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. Around them, the ranch hummed with life, animals settling for the night, workers finishing their tasks, family gathering in the warmth of home. Everything they had built together, every sacrifice and triumph, every moment of joy and sorrow, had led to this peaceful evening and the deep contentment they both felt. "This ranch had room for more," Harrison said quietly, echoing the words he had spoken so many years ago. "But what I did not know then was how much more. Room for love and family, for dreams and legacy, for everything that makes life worth living." "You gave me all of that," Lily said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "You gave me a home when I had nothing. You gave me love when I was afraid to hope for it. You gave me a family and a future beyond anything I could have imagined." "We gave those things to each other," Harrison said, putting his arm around her. "That is what partnership means, what love means." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, they walked back to the house hand in hand. Two people who had found each other against the odds and built a life that honored both their struggles and their triumphs. The lights of home glowed warm and welcoming, and inside they could hear the sounds of family, the voices of children and grandchildren who were their legacy and their joy. Lily paused on the porch, looking back toward the mountains one more time. She thought about the frightened woman who had walked into Kingston carrying everything she owned in a flour sack, desperate and uncertain but still moving forward. That woman had been brave without knowing it, strong without recognizing her own strength. She had taken a risk on an unknown future and found more than she had dared to dream. "Thank you," she whispered to that younger version of herself. "Thank you for being brave enough to keep walking. Thank you for saying yes when it would have been easier to run away. Thank you for trusting that there was something better waiting." Harrison squeezed her hand, understanding without needing explanation. They went inside together, into the warmth and light and love that filled every corner of the home they had made together. The ranch that had room for more and had expanded to hold everything that truly mattered. The years continued to pass, bringing more grandchildren and eventually great-grandchildren. Harrison and Lily grew old together, their bodies slowing but their love remaining as strong as ever. They became beloved figures in the community, respected for their wisdom and kindness, admired for the legacy they had built. When Lily was 70, Harrison 75, they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary with a gathering that brought together over 200 people, family and friends and neighbors whose lives they had touched over the decades. The ranch had grown to over 8,000 acres, run by Henry with help from Samuel, who had returned after college to apply his education to modernizing some of the operations practices. Standing before their assembled loved ones, Harrison raised a glass in toast. 50 years ago, I married the woman who changed my life. She arrived in Kingston carrying everything she owned in a flour sack, and I told her this ranch had room for more. What I did not tell her, because I did not yet understand it myself, was that my heart had infinite room for her. Lily, you have been my partner, my love, my greatest blessing. Every good thing in my life flows from the moment you said yes to taking a chance on me and this ranch. Lily stood beside him, tears streaming down her face, and added her own words. Harrison saw me when I was invisible to most people. He gave me work when I was desperate, but more than that, he gave me dignity and respect and eventually love. This ranch became my home, but he became my heart. I have never regretted a single moment of our life together. The celebration lasted well into the night, with music and dancing and storytelling that wove together the threads of their shared history. Watching their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, Lily felt profound gratitude for the journey that had brought her to this moment. Late that night, when everyone had finally left or gone to bed, Harrison and Lily sat together on their porch one more time, wrapped in blankets against the cool autumn air. The ranch was quiet, peaceful, a testament to everything they had built together. 50 years, Harrison said wonderingly. It feels like both a lifetime and the blink of an eye. I would live it all again, Lily said. Every moment, every challenge, every joy. I would choose you every time. And I would choose you, Harrison replied. From the moment I saw you standing outside that mercantile, dusty and tired and still so beautiful, I would choose you every single time. They sat together watching the stars wheel overhead, two lives completely intertwined, two hearts beating as one. The ranch that had room for more had become a place of abundance, filled with love and family, and the evidence of a life well lived in the end. That was the true measure of their success, not in acres or cattle or wealth, though they had achieved all of those things. The true success was in the love they had shared, the family they had raised, the community they had built, and the legacy they would leave behind. The woman who had arrived carrying everything in a flour sack had found far more than employment or shelter. She had found home in every sense of the word, found love that sustained and strengthened her, found purpose that gave her life meaning. And the cowboy who had said the ranch had room for more had discovered that his greatest wealth was not in the land he owned, but in the woman who had agreed to share it with him. Their story became part of the ranch's history, told and retold by subsequent generations as an example of courage, love, and the beautiful things that can happen when two people find each other at exactly the right moment. The flour sack itself, carefully preserved, became a family heirloom, a reminder of humble beginnings and the extraordinary journey that followed. Harrison and Lily Grant lived out their remaining years surrounded by love, working the ranch as long as they were able, and then watching with pride as younger generations carried on the legacy they had established. When they finally passed, Within months of each other, as couples who have truly become one often do, they left behind a thriving ranch, a large and loving family, and a story that would inspire those who heard it for generations to come. The ranch still stands today, worked by the descendants of that cowboy who saw a woman in need and had the wisdom to recognize an opportunity for something far greater than either of them could have achieved alone. And if you visit on a quiet evening, when the sun is setting over the Nevada mountains and the air is filled with the scent of sagebrush, some say you can still feel the presence of that enduring love, the legacy of a woman who arrived carrying everything in a flour sack, and a cowboy who said his ranch had room for more.